Hey everybody, how you doing? Aaron is back with you, like every week. I mean, you know it's me. Why do I even say that every time? I don't know. But either way, whatever. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. I have a really exciting podcast to give you guys today. I'm actually really stoked at the fact that I get to keep bringing you people that have had a personal impact on my life. And it's kind of cool because I get to talk to these people and get to see them in a very different light than how I've always seen them initially. So far, it's been only, lead singers of bands that I've listened to, but at the same time, the effect is still relevant. So, either way, I am so excited to bring you today's podcast. Today is Lacey Sturm. She is the former lead singer of Flyleaf, an author, a solo artist at the moment, and a rocking mom. No pun intended. We talk about kids quite a bit in this one. So she was so down to earth and so personable. And I couldn't thank her enough for opening up and being so candid about everything that she's done and gone through and just being the biggest sweetheart in the entire world. I mean, honestly, this was something that I never expected. And I even said that at the end of the podcast, like this was completely different because usually we try to focus on the fact of, how touring or how something has affected her life, but she really brought it all into a different perspective, bringing faith into it, bringing, the band into it, bringing a lot of challenges at home. I could go on and on about this one because it's phenomenal. So give this one a listen. Again, I can't thank her enough for taking the time to do this because it is going to affect a lot of people in a very, very, very positive way. So, as always, enjoy this one. Let's roll. Toys and stuff in the kids in the background.
That's awesome. That's a message in itself.
Since COVID came, I've been working from home and whatever,
yeah.
I get it. I get it when you were talking about that earlier. Totally. So, all right. Well, hi, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, I have with me Lacey Sturm. She is the former lead singer of Flyleaf, an author, and a current solo artist. So, Lacey, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron.
So first and foremost, I try to ask this question at least. How are you doing through this pandemic?
Well, in the beginning, it was really crazy. It was really an intense emotional thing for me, which is strange because it came out of nowhere. Like I've never really struggled with anxiety before or fear. I don't think I've ever been afraid the way that like I just don't struggle with fear. I'm like, get on people's nerves with how I'm not, I'm not impressed with things. Like they're like, why are you, like, I'm like, calm down. I'm like, what do you mean calm down?
Right.
But I don't know if it was a combination of a few things together, like some things that went on. I lost someone really close to us, and
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it was really tragic and sudden. And then there was other things going on, like my son is 2 now. And so there's like stuff going on with me. Even at that point, I think postpartum stuff, just all kinds of things, culminating, I think, together. And then there was a weird, maybe we all felt this way, but this is really strange for me too. So is not of just being blindsided, just like,
yeah.
I feel like I didn't expect, I just didn't expect it to be taken so seriously, I guess. And, by the whole world, you know what I mean? I just felt like, well, there's always sickness, it's what we always risk sort of when we go out and, people die of things all the time and we're just going to be in our houses. It was really strange and unexpected in a way that was strange for me because I feel like I usually know what's coming. Even if I shouldn't know, I kind of have a feeling or a sense of things. And not usually surprised, which I was like, is this what most people feel this way? They don't know it's coming, and this is why they're so shocked. And I kind of see things coming, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's you expect, for me, like with my anxiety, I always I want to know what's going to happen. I want to be ahead of the game with everything. So knowing that I had no control or nothing over this, that made me super anxious right away.
Yeah, it does really make you, especially if you're a person of faith, put your money where your mouth is. Like, really, and even just like a positive person who has that feel good message of like, our lives are more than our jobs. Our families are so important, and it's not about money, and we can get along without these things. And if all we had was each other, then that would be enough. And then you're like, wow, what if it's all we have? Like, for real, we give these big speeches, and then here you are, it's tested, and you're like,
It's definitely been a change for a lot of people where, I haven't, there's been points where I haven't left the house in months, and I just try to, deal with it. I have 2 young kids as well. I mean, like you said, you can see from the back here, but I've become closer with them, but also, I can say it's very taxing because my wife works during the day.
mm-hmm.
I usually work in the afternoon. So it's like a trade-off. I'm a single parent most of the time. And
Mm-hmm.
I understand that entirely, where it can really get on your nerves. And it's been difficult in that sense. But otherwise,
I feel like if we don't change in the right way, we're going to struggle a ton. So I think that it was so good for me. It was just so good for me. I think that just it changing me in a good way. It just gave me such a sense of compassion, because I never had patience for people that struggle with fear. And that's really, I just like, I've seen so much since I was young, and I've always seen drama, and I'm always like ready for weird things to happen. I feel like I've always was like, just be smarter. Just know that things are going to be crazy. Just figure it out. Like, if you lost everything, where would you be? And, figure that out. Think about that. Like, sit there and be wise about this, about your life. Like, nothing's guaranteed except for, that death. That's
right.
I'm like, don't you know better? And so in my, I wouldn't always talk like that. I mean, my bandmates might say, yes, you did all the time. But I don't feel like I talk like that all the time, but it was a difficult thing for me to have compassion for people that struggled with that. I definitely had compassion on people that struggle with depression and suicide and other things that I've walked through, that I've met people who have no idea what that's like.
Right.
And I can't believe they don't know what that's like. It's so weird. We think our experience is the only one there is. But like I'm like talking to the guy who helped me write my book.
Yeah.
I was like, no. I was like, I had to talk to him. Like, he was trying to cut out certain things. He's like, well, that's too much. I'm like, no, if you don't put this part in, they're not going to understand the logic here. And he's like, well, you were just depressed. And I'm like, no, there's reasons. Like you can get to the roots of things, and you have to understand. Like, it was just so difficult to get him to understand that I wasn't just a jerk for no reason.
Well, that's interesting though, because when you say that, I can purely recall, like my wife is, I feel like she's very much like you in the sense of she has compassion for people, but she's for lack of a better term, take no shit. She'll just get it done,
Yes.
And when I try to explain, I'm like, this is what I'm feeling, and I don't know why I'm feeling it, and I can't explain why I'm feeling it, but this is it. It's very hard for her to get it, but she tries so hard, and that's why I love her dearly for it. But yeah, I mean, I can't say I've never used the "you're never going to understand" kind of thing. And I mean,
what I find is that there's enough of a glimpse. I feel like when we have that complete lack of understanding, I think if we really desire to learn, and especially in marriage or having children or having anybody close to us that's struggling with something you don't get, I feel like God sets it up sometimes where we get a glimpse. And we have to face that afterwards, that same what's not uncompassionate, but I guess that is a word. I don't know if that's a word. That same intolerance, I guess.
Yeah.
A moment where you would have been before, and ask yourself honestly. We're not always honest with ourselves. Even when we face it or we get a glimpse of it, we'll get out of it, and then we'll act like it never happened.
Right.
Like for me, like with my husband, I remember, me being that way about certain things, and then me being in his shoes in another situation and realizing, wow, you were so, and, had no patience. And it was totally, it was unloving. You were not loving. You weren't supposed to love this person. So many times in marriage, especially, we're like thinking about whether or not they're loving us, but you didn't promise that they would love you. You promised that you would love them, right? You got married.
Wow, that puts a lot into perspective now.
And so that's when the ring is tested, that's what it's for. That's what those moments are for.
No, and that's very important to hear, because it's been difficult, and sometimes people are just struggling that much. And the best thing we can always do, I always say, is just, be kind to one another, check in on people, make sure that you're there and be present for them. And that's honestly the best thing you can do, I think, at least during this time. So, and
that's too, like, in the same vein of figuring out who, like in your marriage, I'm supposed to love you. I'm not, whatever. I can't be taking tabs on whether you're loving me. It's with all of our relationships. Like I realize that's something that I've learned is, like, it's better to not ask like, who's my friend, but who am I a friend to? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
because that's the joy of, like, being in a relationship. If we really think about it, it's not that fleeting joy of somebody doing something nice for you. The joy that stays with you is when you get to love someone. It's really, there's something to that sticks and, like, transforms you.
So we do training for like people, just, kind of just to anybody that's maybe struggling, but we do this thing called resilience training. And what it is it's awesome, because we focus on basically first responders, like law enforcement, firefighter, EMS, things like that. But there's a section in this resilience thing, it's called gratitude, and shows what you're grateful for and how better you feel as a person if you're giving that gratitude or giving something more as opposed to receiving it. And it's true, when you are grateful and you express that with people, I think it makes a world of difference.
It teaches you that you can shift from one perspective to the next, and everything change. Like with the light, like a light turns on in that moment, and you're like, wow.
Isn't that just crazy? Like, just having something that simple can change an entire day. Just having, instead of thinking what bad happened to me today, what good happened to you? And then it just spreads that with everybody. At least for me, it does. But
we do that at dinner with our family. We always do. And I learned it from my manager's wife. I was at their dinner table one night, and they said, okay, best and worst. And so they do all the worst. You don't have to have a worst, but you have to have a best. And everybody at the table shares their worst moment of the day and their best moment of the day. You don't have to tell your worst, but if it really opens up conversation in a really cool way. So we continue to do that now. Everybody at the table, it's awkward for guests sometimes. They're like, don't want to tell you about that horrible thing that I went through, but I'm like, you don't have to.
Right.
They get relieved.
No, and that's the thing, though. But it shows that you're instilling good values and saying, like, look, it's not all bad. And I think that's the most important thing. Because believe me, it's so easy to focus on bad. It's always easy. But when you focus on something that's good, I think it makes it worthwhile. Something.
My son, he's 9. And ever since he's little, he loves comics. And so I got him Charlie Brown. It's one of my favorites since I was little, And then I realized my son was turning into Charlie Brown. And I didn't realize how negative Charlie Brown is.
Right?
I didn't realize until my son starts like moping around, saying everything is depressing. And I'm like, you are too young to be saying things like this. And I realized he puts on a character sometimes, because it's just the way that I was like that too.
Yeah.
but then I had to like have him stop reading it for a little while.
Right? Yeah, you go to Calvin and Hobbes or something else, whatever.
There's cynicism in that. There's not a
Yes.
lot of comics out there that are actually don't have something that he would cling on to. Was like, oh, what was the other one? Garfield. He's like started bullying his brother like he was Odie or something.
Right, exactly. Wow, you just opened up this whole awesome avenue of like comics that are just so depressing and sad, and there's this undertone of just horribleness to them.
But you know what he loves now? He loves Jim Gaffigan.
But he's kind of wholesome, right?
Yeah, he learned how to take his own irony and laugh at that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's great humor.
Exactly.
If we can recognize our own irony, then we can actually grow and laugh at ourselves and make others laugh at the same time.
This is crazy because we've only been talking for maybe like 10 minutes or something, and I feel like you're like it's very normal. Like this is so awesome. I love this. It's
very normal life here.
That's okay though. Like that's just it. I mean, everybody goes through stuff, and nobody ever just talks about the normalcy of life. That's just what it is. And like I said, I'm never opposed to talking about anything like that, because even if there's one question I ask on the podcast, but we wait till the end of it. Okay. But you'll understand why. It's crazy. So, and actually that kind of leads me into a question I did have, just a personal question, is how has music and kind of everything that you've done up to this point, how has that been with like family life?
Well, ever since we started Flyleaf, we kind of had this commitment to relationships as a band. Mm-hmm. And we always made that a priority. So, because we watched marriages fail, we watched, outside on the road, we watched families that, not stay together and things like that. We watched people, cheat on their spouses out in that world. And that's normal, just normal. I mean, nobody judges each other for it. You just kind of expect it. Even like, what do they have? Like, there was a show, I think, about rock stars' wives. It was just known, like, that's just part of the deal. But we were committed whenever we started the band and we started going on tour. We committed to our relationships at home, trying to put our family in the right place. So if somebody had something going on at home, they needed to get back, we tried to keep that important. If there was somebody got married, I think Jared was the first to get married. His wife, on the road with us all the time. Anytime she wanted, they always got hotel rooms, everybody else slept on the bus, like we can afford it, but we're like, well, we're going to commit to your family. And so then all of a sudden everybody wanted to get married after that. Right. It made it really good. So like there was just this commitment to that. And so, but for me personally, I think because I was the singer and all the interviews and everybody always wanted to talk to me and wanted to, I think there was a little bit of a different demand on me mentally than the rest of the guys. If I didn't go, the show couldn't go on. If they needed to stop, then we could fill in. So when I got pregnant with Joshua, I decided that I needed to take a break. And it wasn't just that I needed to take a break, but that I wasn't sure if I could do it. So I couldn't commit to coming back.
Yeah.
And so that instability was really hard for the band. And they're like, and I understood that. I mean, I know that I'm risking the breakup of the band. But if you guys want to look for another singer and whatever, it was really hard to disappoint them because they were my family.
Right.
And it was hard for everybody. But I know it was the right thing to do. And I like, even in the first year of my son's life, we found out he had asthma, for like infant asthma. He grew out of it, but it would hit whenever the weather changed. And that first time he almost died because we didn't recognize, I thought he was sick and he was with my mother-in-law. She's like, he's fine. I'll just put the humidifier on.
Right.
And when I got there, I just came to the house and recognized, no, this is not normal. And I was like, we're going to the emergency room right now. So I took him and they were like 5 minutes, he would have been gone. They're like, his oxygen's so low. And I didn't realize and it was an allergy to the weather changing. Like when a certain wind would come in, he would just he'd have asthma attack. And so I didn't realize it was asthma. But if we had been on a bus and it would have been in the middle of the night, and we go through different towns every day, the weather changing every day, and it's loud and rolling, I don't know if I would have caught it. And it would have been constant in the hospital. We were in the hospital several times. So I realized that if we'd have been on the road, we wouldn't have, I don't know if we would have survived that. It sounds so dramatic, but just to be able to know that we were in the right place, like
that sounds like a very, very scary scenario, because you're right. If you were on the road and you didn't have an option just to get to a hospital right away, that could have been potentially devastating.
Yeah.
And it was just saying, thank God that it, didn't get to that point.
Yeah. And so, there was like that little encouragement that I was in the right place and that it was worth it, because it was a hard thing to like, and it's a false sense of responsibility, truly, that any one person, I mean, you can see practically how not touring can affect financially lots of people, practically. But if we put the weight on ourselves as an individual to provide, outside of, which again, I'm going to go back to God, because the thing is, our lives, if we're gone, I mean, and we experienced this after that same time period, our sound engineer died in a car accident. You never know when it's your last day. He was totally healthy. He had his seatbelt on. Apparently he was going the speed limit. And this guy was crazy. He was like he had a, Ducati, like Roadster, whatever. Like he drives crazy. He's like a daredevil kind of dude. But he just driving in his car, the speed limit with his seatbelt on, and went off some kind of bend in the road that was something like, it was just wet. And went over a bridge, and that was his last day. And you never know when it's going to be your last day, And so if we put it on ourselves to live our lives as if we hold the world, then we're going to miss recognizing what is our assignment for this time. Are you right. Like, if it was your last day, would you go home and be with your kids? Maybe. Would you be would you be at home, or would you be like on stage, like somewhere, like with a megaphone saying, listen, this is what you need to know about life. You know what I mean? Like, we don't know, but we need to have a sense of this is what I feel like I'm supposed to do. And so I'm going to go in faith, and this is what I'm going to, and I'm going to feel like I did the best I knew, and look back and not have any regrets about the choices we made, the best we knew how, to love as best we knew how at the time we got.
That's very, like, it's amazing, because yes, unfortunately your band is your family, and you're crushing that. But at the same time, you also had so many other people that listen to you. And if you take on all of that disappointment, sadness, that's going to make you a wreck, I would think.
Yeah, it's true. And people do take it on, and people don't make it out of that industry very well when they put that false sense of responsibility on themselves. They get enslaved to that. And I don't think that's good for your fans or anyone. I think that we need to know that if our life is spinning out of control, what are we building it on? Why is it rocked? Maybe we've built it on something that's not supposed to be built on. You have to figure out that stable place. And I guess I knew that more than I understand. My story is unique. I now understand that more than ever. I thought all Christians had the same experience that I had, which is not true. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know they didn't. Like, I felt like when you had that moment of knowing, like when you decide, wow, God is real, and wow, he really wants a relationship with me, and all I have to do is believe in him, that he forgives me through Jesus did it for me. He forgives me. So I just believe it. And that light coming on, I thought that was the same as when the light comes on, and I thought it was the same for everybody. It's not. What I saw was I had a near-death experience without coming near to death physically. And I didn't realize that I was very unique. I saw my life flash before my eyes. I saw all the ways I justified things in my life that were totally just hateful, hateful. I was a hateful person, and I didn't realize it. I justified myself constantly. Most of my life was spent justifying. My conversations with people was always justifying why I had the right to be the way I was. And when I was standing and I had an encounter with God, and I was an atheist, I did not believe it. It was terrifying, scary. Obviously, to not believe, and then there's God, and like have this flicker of a yes, in my heart of like, okay, well, before I go take my life, which is, I don't know, I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but
It's okay.
at 16, I planned to take my life. And on the day I planned to take my life, my grandma ended up in a church, which I was just trying to sit through so that my grandma wouldn't scream at me at home because she recognized something was wrong. And afterwards, I was just going to go on with my plan, and I was just hated everybody there, did not want to be there, and ended up getting stopped at the door by a man I still talk to. I call him Poppy now. And he said, he prayed for me, and it was a flicker of a yes to let him pray for me. I mean, I was like, well, you're just going to go die anyway. You might as well just stand with this guy who's looking at me with a love I'd never seen in a strange man's eyes before. I was shocked by how he looked at me. I expected everybody to judge me. I felt hated. I felt hateful. When you hate people, you feel hated. It's weird.
Right.
When you're a liar, you expect everybody's lying to you. When you are judgy, you expect everybody's judging you.
Yeah.
You judge yourself actually more than, and I was so judgmental, and I didn't realize that. I judged the judgmental people. It was terrible.
But that's just it. You said it exactly. With you kind of reminded me of something. So, and I don't know if I told your manager this or not, but prior to doing this job, I was a police officer for 12 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. That's cool.
12 years. But I got out of that because of my mental health, because I wasn't here for my family, because I was a horrible husband and father prior to doing that. But the thing is, in hindsight, I feel like this was the right choice, because now I'm so much more connected with my wife. I'm so much more connected with my family. And to have that thought of, I could have just kept going and being this miserable person and constantly just look at the negative of people, and just, so I don't know if I want to say it's linear with your story, but I know I'm jumping because I know you were talking about that, but like, it's a hard choice to make, to completely just shift your world, basically.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. I don't think I know any police officers, especially any that left for the reason you said, just to make a good choice for your family. That's so powerful. And it's so wise. I mean, because how are you going to save everybody out there if your family's suffering at home? It's just it's something we don't always recognize, is just that obvious question. Like, what are you supposed to be doing? And then when we're not, and I've seen this in our own life, like so many times, like, I'm like, I want to help people, and I want to share, and I want to write stories, and I want to like, and then my kids, like 3 kids at home, like running around the house, like and I'm not giving them any direction, and they're getting in trouble. And I'm like, why aren't you telling them stories? Why aren't you?
Yeah.
Why aren't you like helping them? Like, you have this season of your life where you actually have human beings that are letting you shape their person, like
right.
who they're going to be, and they're going to, that's amazing story. I'm really excited to hear that. That's really cool.
It was one of those decisions that, you get to that point where you say, and I feel like it, like you said, it was that decision of, do I want to keep going down this road? Because if I do, I will take my life. I will.
Wow.
And I knew that was going to happen. And I'm very grateful that I had the support of my wife to say, look, we don't know what we're going to do after this, but we do it and we move on. Because she knew.
Yay.
Yeah.
So inspiring.
Yeah, sure was.
You know what's strange? I for a minute I took some college classes, because after I had Atticus, we couldn't afford it after I had Atticus, but I didn't really have time. But every opportunity I got to pick my own topic, I always picked suicide and freedom, those 2 topics, because I feel like they're they're 2 sides of the same coin. Without freedom, we wouldn't have that option.
Right.
And just freedom in general, like, what is the purpose of law. What is the purpose of freedom? It's actually supposedly to protect your freedoms and the freedoms of other people. And so, but with freedom, you have crime because you get to choose it. And so that's why you need the law to like protect those freedoms. And just thinking about the purpose of all of that. And I remember reading this one book about suicide. Well, it was about, I think it was about assisted suicide. And it was this guy talking about, it was a professor saying that he smoked, and he challenged his class to say, so do you think that I'm committing suicide in a slower way? Since I know this will kill me, and yet I'm still doing it and choosing it every day. And so they examined all kinds of cases. And at the end of the book, he presented his own self. And it really shook me. And I'm like, wow. So like every choice that we make that's destructive is in a sense this same kind of self-destructive choice. And we know it. And yet we have this huge stigma about people not understanding. And yet everybody makes these choices all the time. And I just remember feeling like, wow, like we feel so separated and far apart and like we don't understand each other, but we're really all in the same boat.
I have never thought about it that way before. Before you've said that, I've never really thought about that. But that is exactly right.
And so you, in a sense, when you were doing law, you're kind of in the middle of that anyway. And here you are doing it just philosophically.
Right. I mean, yeah, like life can change in a minute.
Addressing the mentality that would lead you to those destructive roads, right?
And that's exactly it. I mean, and what's ironic about this, like we were talking about that resilience thing earlier. Now I actually train officers not to be like me. Like, so it's kind of, it's very ironic, but it's a very fulfilling thing because I know I left for the right reasons and I would not be here if I didn't. I know that. But you said life has this kind of path. And, you know, prior to me leaving, I mean, you were talking about how you were just there at the church with your grandma. I would just go and I'd be there. You know, I wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't feel anything. And I always felt like, you know, you see the worst of the worst all the time. So how can God be this way? Why would he do something like this? So it makes me cynical and it makes me in denial of what's really there. But that's where you know, I always say, try to focus on the good, try to actually be present with the moment. And I'm not good at it most days, but at least you try. And that's the thing. And I think that's something that I think almost everybody can relate to, no matter who you are for that matter.
Yeah. And, you know, I went through the person that there's just like, I had a cousin that recently passed away as well. And just so many people that I know that struggled, but then also a few people I know that took, you know, have struggled with suicide, but also some people I know that took their life, and realizing that afterwards, it's such a great pain, you know, pain, like it's like a crime against all the people who love you in a way that it sticks, you know, it's like, it's terrible. It's like, so we don't even realize what we're doing, but in the moment, obviously we can't think of anything but our pain and getting peace, you know?
Yeah.
And of course that's not necessarily it's just weird to not be able to imagine that life could be different than it is and feel like we're stuck and there's no choices we can make. So amazing that you're able to make that choice. But I just think about like the people that I know, and especially the ones that, particularly one person I know that took their life. And I felt this, it was just, I was so angry, not at them necessarily, because I understood their sickness, but at suicide itself. Like I was just so angry at the loss. I was so angry. And I had to tell a friend of mine, and I didn't want to tell her because my friend struggled and she had so many family members that took their lives, and she knew this person too. And when I was on that phone call with this girl telling her what happened, immediately the lady I'm talking to that had all these people in her life take their lives, and it was she's one of my best friends. She immediately starts talking to this other girl that took her life. She starts talking to her like as if she can hear from the other side. And she says, we love you and we forgive you and you're free. And you're free to be at peace and we forgive you. And like when she said that, I started crying. I was like, yes, we forgive you. I start crying. I'm like, we forgive you and you're free. And, you know, when I was able to say that, I had this experience. I've never talked about this before. It feels still a little fresh and I've never been able to really articulate it.
You share what you feel comfortable with doing.
Well, I just feel like it's important to know that part of forgiving healed. It healed so much. There was all these memories of hard times with this person, and they just sort of like they're like exploded, and they were gone. And then all of a sudden, all these memories started flooding from that time on of good things, just like all the good things. And I was able to like actually celebrate this person's life, and I realized when we love people, in the beginning of just loving people with all our heart, there's an ignorance to it because we don't know the pain of losing them or them hurting us, especially in that way. Like that, to me, I can't think of any other way. Like to be able to forgive that, and it was so powerful in my life because I had an ignorance of loving people in the beginning. And by the time this other person came in my life, I wouldn't shut down because I knew what it was like to feel pain. And I didn't actually allow myself to feel love.
Yeah.
Feel it. I felt joy, I felt happiness, and I did love, but I didn't let myself feel it. And I didn't realize I didn't feel it until I forgave this person for taking their life. And once I forgave them and all the good memories started coming, and I was just able to like feel the love I had for them, it clicked something in me for my whole family, which I didn't realize I was reserved even with my family. What if I lose you? I didn't realize I had a part of me that was like shut off. So what happened was now I don't have an ignorant love. I have a choice that I'm going to love you no matter what choice you make. I'm going to love you. And I remember wrapping my arms around my son and saying, I always say this anyway. I say, I love you forever. But when I said at that time, I felt it. And I was like, this is true. No matter what you choose, you're worth loving. And I felt it. And it was crazy. It was like, and I just was so thankful for that person that had made that horrible choice that I was able to forgive, and that what they taught me was how to love.
How amazing is it to be vulnerable and open yourself up to really accept something like that? I can't even imagine like, and I've had maybe one or two moments of that in my entire life, like where I've really felt like I've opened up, and thankfully one's been to my wife, and I'm glad because now I am more connected and loving, and she understands me a lot more because of that, because I'm vulnerable. And my kids, well, they're 3 and 1 right now. So they're just, little hellraisers, but they're good. They're good. I love them anyway. I know. So
I don't know what they're talking about. Terrible twos is nothing. It's 3. That's crazy.
Every day. It's just,
it's an adventure.
It is. So you wrote a couple books. Tell me about the books. Tell me about kind of what drove you to write them and what they're about.
Well, my husband encouraged me to write the first book that I wrote called The Reason. And it's about what I was sharing earlier about when I was younger and struggling with depression and struggling with self-hatred, my mom always talked to me about God when I was little. She was a single mom and a teen mom. And so we had to depend on God when we were little because we just struggled. And she had believed, and I saw that work. I saw it. We had like breakdown on the side of the road, no money, no help. And she'd be like, get your coats on. We're walking to the gas station. God's going to bring somebody to help us. Like, maybe find them.
Yeah.
So I believed in God when I was little. And then when I was 10, I had my little cousin, who was 3 years old at the time, was beaten to death by his stepfather. And I remember thinking, well, where was God? And so stopped believing in God. And then at 16, like I said earlier, I committed to being sad for my cousin. I taught myself to be depressed because I didn't feel like it was right to be happy since he was gone and he had such a horrible thing happen. And I didn't trust happy people, and I hated anybody to talk about God. I thought that was telling somebody to sit in a broken chair. I'm like, it's wrong to tell people there's hope when there's none. And so by the time I was 16, I was just, anytime somebody told me something was a sin, I would go do it because you're not going to control me. And actually the truth is those things are, it's just like sin, just the even definition of it is just missing the mark of love.
Yeah.
Is missing the mark of love. And so even the word repentance is Greek word is metanoia, which means change the way you think. And so go back and try to hit love this time, or like line back up, try again. It's not like this feel bad and hate yourself and I'm terrible. It's like,
right.
No, like love, like realize this isn't love. It's not, it wasn't the thing, And so I didn't realize I was just self-destructing. And I did have a death wish, already from the time I was 10. I remember thinking, why was it him and not me? Why am I still here if he's not here? I didn't understand. Just didn't understand that. Very codependent, of course. I taught, and so didn't understand. I felt like I was a burden, and then I remember that moment I met God on that day. I planned to end my life, and the first thing I understood was God is real. This isn't an accident.
Right.
I'm intentionally on the earth, intentionally created. I'm not a mistake, which was really strange. I mean, that by itself, there's a million revelations in that moment, but that by itself was it was like stability of like, wow, I don't have the right to just stop it, because I mean, I have the freedom, but I realized it wouldn't be right because this is a gift to me.
There is so much power in that story, though, for people that probably, you said it exactly. I feel like a burden for people. I feel like I'm not worthy to be here. I feel like, and then hearing that there's always another day. And the whenever we encounter people, I mean, because we still encounter people that are in crisis mode, and we try to, help them out in any way possible. I always use this line. I always ask them, what's one thing in this world that gives you hope? One thing. And if they have something, that means there's still light there. And that means there's something that's still driving them. And that's what you try to really focus on, because they need that one thing. And it's amazing that you had that man. It's amazing that he was there and all of a sudden said something that sparked. It's a wonderful thing to hear when people have something like that.
Well, I think it's interesting that anybody watching this right now, I'm talking to the person watching this right now, whoever's going to watch this or hear this right now, whoever's going to listen to it, that's not an accident either. You are hearing a story on purpose. There's meaning for you to hear this, like this is a moment for you to recognize you are a gift to the world, and that this life is a gift to you, and no matter what challenges we go through on this adventure, on this life, if we look for it, we will find that there are gifts all around us. There is always something, like we were talking about earlier, that we can find to be thankful for if we look for it. If we look for things to pile up on top of themselves, to be miserable over, we will find those too. And so we have to be intentional with our thoughts. We don't have to say, I think that we don't understand who we are as humans. Exactly. We are spirit, soul, and body. We are more than just our physical selves. we do perceive spiritual things. I can perceive when I walk into a room if somebody's been crying in there. I can feel it. I can feel when I walk into a dark place. I can feel when I walk into a place full of life. And sometimes we don't realize we're feeling the environment sometimes. It's not even us. I can tell when somebody's mad and they're not saying a word. Why? It's because we are perceptive in other ways. And sometimes we pick up on what someone else is thinking. It's not even our thought, even if it's in our brain. So we can be intentional with our thoughts. My son is this way. And this solidified it for me. We were on tour, and we were on a very dark tour with a band called OTEP. They are very dark, all about justice-ish kind of hatred for things. And
Yep.
And there was a lot of people in a particular area. I can feel it when we cross over the line and it's a city sometimes. I can feel something struggling that's going on there, like in this particular city. Immediately when we pulled up, like I felt that feeling of self-harm, self-hatred. And I also could feel kind of like a manic depressive, I guess, but also self-hatred, self-harm, and suicide. I felt it like so clear. I mean, that's really familiar to me, so it's easy for me to pick up on that, but it was really heavy. And so I was so thankful to be there, because I'm like, this is my people. This is where I get to sing my songs and sing about hope and, and love, and tell people that there's more, maybe you can move to the city over. Just kidding. No, I mean, it's not really, your problems. So, not run for your problems is what I'm not trying to say that, but I felt that excitement of being there. But I didn't think about my 3-year-old, who is so much like me. And I realized he has the same gift that I do, particularly strong gift of feeling. Not everybody has that particular gift, which is such a gift to me that somebody else feel what everybody feels. But I didn't realize I just gave him the slightest correction of something, and he went into this horrible fit. And he's never said anything like this before. He was 3 years old, and I said, you need to go into your bunk. And so he went to his bunk, was pitching a fit and screaming. And then I kind of heard what he said I thought I heard it. I thought I heard him say, I don't want to live. And I was like, what did I think I heard? And I went in there, and he was scraping his arm on his toy box, like trying to hurt himself. He was like so red. And I was like, and something came over me, and I didn't even know, like I didn't even know what I was saying. I feel like I was outside myself, but I said,
yeah,
Joshua Lewis, you have a gift, and you can feel what other people feel. Outside this bus, there are people who don't want to live. There are people who want to hurt themselves. Those are not your feelings. Those are the feelings of people outside, and you have a gift, and you can pray right now for those people, and God's going to bless them and help them. And as soon as I said that, he stopped. But he stopped. He put his little hands together, and he just started praying. God, I pray you bless the people out there that don't want to live, and help them know that they should live, and help them not to hurt themselves. And as soon as he said that, he says, I feel better, Mommy. And I was like, great. And I hugged him. I got him in my bunk, and I just cried.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, I was like, he never has done that since. That was the only time he ever did that. And I realized he feels. And it's true that sometimes we can feel what other people feel, and it's not even our own feelings. And I didn't realize I was saying that to him. I was like, how did I even have composure? Because why would I take my child out here? Like, what?
I can only imagine that you'd react in the way that 99% of other people would react. So I think when somebody has that feeling, like where they can feel that deeply with somebody, those are the people that need to that need that kind of, I don't want to say like exposure, or to say like they need that, because when they are able to talk about, hey, I'm feeling the way that you're feeling right now, you immediately make that connection with somebody. And that is more powerful than I think people realize. It's even if I don't, and I use this on the road all the time, even if I've never been in your shoes, if I can empathize with you on one specific thing, you and I have just made a connection, and that's super important.
Yeah, you don't feel alone, but to feel understood is so relieving. And it feels like you obviously it's some kind of like, I don't want to say the word intimate, but it is like, it's like love. It's like loving.
That and you're absolutely right with that, because I can remember when I was growing up, and I was never diagnosed with anything until I was 27. And actually, it was my wife that said, something's wrong. You need to seriously understand something's wrong. I never knew what it was, but when I would talk to somebody when I was, a teenager or early 20s, and they said something that I understood, that whole feeling of, I feel like nobody would ever understand, how powerful that made me feel to say, like, I'm not alone in this. There are other people that feel that way. And it's just, you're right. It's amazing. And actually, I mean, and you probably have it tenfold with the fact that you write songs for people that need that want to really have a message. They want to say something, but you can say it for them. And how powerful that must be.
Yeah, I think that's part of the gift. If you can realize what a lot of the things that we think are our problem is really, there's a gift in there that's we're supposed to harness somehow, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of those things, is to be able to feel what other people feel and express that, to help them not feel alone, to help them express themselves. It is a gift, and I perverted that gift and was very selfish with it and very self-loathing, and used it to justify myself and, belittle other people. I was a hateful person. I was hateful to people that didn't feel self-loathing. I was jealous over their health, and also families. Like, I hated happy families. I remember the first time I heard this girl stand up and say, me and my mom are best friends. And I felt this rage at her, and I just want to throw my books at her and be like, shut up. Nobody cares about your happy family. And now I have this happy family. And I realized that the reason a lot of people that are happy have been through a ton of things, just have a different response and have a different environment to like sort through those things. There's health there. I thought health was shallow, but actually it's deeper than sorrow. Like sorrow is healthy too sometimes, but the healing after the sorrow is a deeper place, which I didn't realize. I'm like, oh, y'all are just fake happy, and there is that unhealthy thing.
Yeah.
But then below that is where I stayed. But there's even deeper, and that's called being healthy. Oh, wow. Who knew?
That's the thing too. When I felt that way as well, like when, not necessarily self-loathing, but when I saw something that I was like, wow, they're happy. I get what you say when you felt rage or you feel like angry. And only in hindsight can I realize it's because that's only a normal response, that everybody wants happiness. They want to be the best version of themselves, but maybe they just don't know how to get there yet, and it's a long, long journey. It really is.
Well, we have, it is long, but then we don't realize that where we are right now is, again, it's a gift to be in the spot you're at. If you can acknowledge it as a gift, and you can learn right where you are and accept that gift, then it doesn't matter how long the journey is. It just matters that today I get to talk to Aaron today, and I will never meet another person like him. There's never been a person like him. And we got to talk about his family, again, his kids, his wife, his service to people, like, just my sister used to live in Wisconsin. I love Wisconsin. I'm there our band played there tons of times. I know you guys went through a hard time. Where are you?
So it's a place called Kaukauna, but do you know where Appleton is? 20 minutes south of Green Bay.
Okay.
That's kind of where we're located. So,
well, I know it's it's terrible weather. It's harsh and cold. Well, my sister lived in Kenosha, and but I think like just to be able to recognize the uniqueness of this moment and learn. I'm learning, and I'm inspired. I'm so inspired by your decision to be home and your wife's decision to like encourage you. Something's off, or like, you need to, you need this to get away from your job and to do something different. And here you are doing this awesome thing, and you're willing to be with your kids during the day, which is such a gift to see a dad do that. When I was growing up, I didn't see an example of that. My grandpa was an amazing grandpa to us. He wasn't always around because, he lived in Mississippi, we live in Texas, but I just didn't see that in consistent way in people's lives. So it is awesome. I'm inspired by that. So it's good.
This is not supposed to the way it's supposed to go, where you make me emotional or anything like that. So no, thank you very much. I do appreciate that. That is, it's one of those things where I know, like, as we were talking, I'm like, yeah, it's tough, I think, but that's me again, focusing on maybe the negatives, whereas you just said every positive that I needed to focus on. So, and that's, thank you. That's very powerful.
But it's real. Like
it's real. Yeah.
It's not like, this is not a greeting card.
Yeah.
This is real life. Like, this really is, like, I know what it feels like to look around you and not be able to see anything good. I know what that feels like. And I am so militant about my mind and my thoughts. And like, just because something seems a way or looks a certain way doesn't mean that's the eternal truth. So what's the eternal truth you can hang on to? You are a unique human being. This moment will never come back. You are, these eternal truths of soul growing. That's what's going to last. Not what we see. It's what we can't see. It's what we understand, that growing. And so that's real. It's actually the only real thing.
It's crazy because this has been kind of a very different podcast that I've ever had, but this is one that I actually am so excited to share with people because of the fact that it's not just more of like, oh, tell me about, Flyleaf, tell me about your book, tell me about this. We've gone on so many different avenues and topics that it all is relative. It all makes sense. And honestly, what you said,
I haven't been in media training for a while. So
oh my God, who cares? Who cares about that?
No, it went everywhere.
No, here's the thing. I have always made the stance that this podcast is supposed to be raw. It's supposed to be real, and it's supposed to share a story of whoever it is. I mean that wholeheartedly. And we've had super sad podcasts where all I've been is like almost in tears from hearing stories. But there's also those very insightful ones where coming into this, did I think it was going to be a lot of tell me your story, tell me this, tell me that. And I usually think about how it would go, but I'm very glad that it went completely opposite of that, because I get to see Lacey in a very different way. My listeners get to hear Lacey in a different way. Your fans get to see Lacey in this different way. And that is so, so heartwarming and powerful. And that's why I like doing this. And I like reaching out to people like you, because
Thank you for doing that.
Of exit there, but I do ask that one question that I told you earlier about, and you kind of answered it the whole time already, but you can do it again. So you can take this any way that you want.
Okay.
What's your advice for anybody that's ever been in your situation or has resonated with something that you've said today?
My advice is, I would say pay attention to your thoughts and don't just accept anything that's leading you to hopelessness. If you feel that leading to hopelessness, you can actually pause. You can actually push the pause button. You can actually stop right there and begin to intentionally start to list things that you're thankful for, and list things and like look for something on purpose, and look for, to look for someone to reach out to and to love on and to serve. Like, that's crazy. Like, the ability to actually like recognize there's something outside myself I can do to turn the lights on. Like, call your grandma.
Yeah, right.
I mean, like, even if that's, if that's not available, like there's so many ways that we can figure out how to be thankful. And I think, there's this big movement about self-care. I think the language is depressing to me because I know it's trying to counter self-harm. And that's beautiful. But if I think too much about myself, I get depressed.
Right.
But if I think about like how to be thankful, like, oh my gosh, I'm thankful that there's cookies in the fridge right now that I haven't made yet. I'm gonna go make them and eat them and be thankful. And somebody might call that self-care, but I would call that being thankful and finding something to be thankful about and actually recognize, like, there's this beyond necessity beauty of life that is all around us. Music is beyond necessity. Laughter, humor is beyond necessity. Colors, art, of all kinds, flavors, I love cooking. Obviously, I said that. I'm back to that. That's beyond necessity, but those things are things we can be thankful for. What is beautiful around you, and be thankful for those things. So I think that's one part of it.
It's the gratitude. It's like you said, I guess, it's what it is. It's honestly being thankful. And that's a huge, huge thing. Just stop and think about that for sure. So if people want to get in touch with you, they want to learn more about Lacey, they want to figure out a little bit more, how do they do that?
You can go to lacysturm.com. We have social media stuff. Of course, we have Official Lacey on Instagram, and I think we have that on Facebook too, Official Lacey. We have I Love Josh Sturm, which is my personal, on Instagram. We have Twitter too. I think it's all connected. Instagram made it really easy. Everything's from Instagram now.
For sure.
And then I think about the faith side of things, I did a program about my journey with faith and just like stuff like that on Reflect Love Back. We call it reflectloveback.com. And there's videos up there on YouTube as well, just of like stuff to do with the Bible and stuff that I found inspiring.
Okay. Yeah. And what I'll do is I'll definitely put those all in the show notes for the listeners. And like I said, this has been a very powerful podcast for me. So it's really been my honor and pleasure to have you on today. So thank you.
Thank you. It was great to talk to you.
Again, Lacey, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your story and sharing your wisdom. It really does touch a lot of people. And I think it was best that you touched on it while we were talking, that, you said to the person, you're hearing this story on purpose. This is the moment for you to recognize that you're a gift to the world. I think that is one of the most powerful statements I have ever heard somebody say to the listeners that hear this, because you are a gift. And even though if you don't feel like it, you are. And you always have to remember that. And I'm so glad that she has the wisdom and knowledge to really just say, you are loved. Exactly what I tell you every single week. That's the beauty of this, is that there are people that understand what you are going through. And like I tell you, you're not alone. It's so important to remember that. So Lacey, thank you again. If you want to check out more about what she's doing, about any of her books, about any of her solo stuff, you can check out her website, lacysturm.com. And she's also on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, everything. Check her out. All the show notes in the below. Check out all of that stuff in the show notes below. It's super important, and I'm so glad that she is an advocate for something like this. So again, Lacey, thank you from the bottom of my heart so much. Did you like today's podcast? I really hope you did, because I always want to bring you the best stuff. I never just want to bring you a mediocre guest. I don't want to bring you somebody that I just need somebody for the week. I want you to be engaged in this. I want you to understand that I'm trying the best I can to bring you the best I can. And that's the most important thing. So if you did, like, share, subscribe, follow any platform or any podcast app you listen on, just give that little heart or thumbs up or whatever it is, because that shows me that I'm doing the right work and I'm doing the best I can for you. And I want you to be there and I want you to be present. And I want you to understand that you are a part of this family. Just even listening, you're here, you're listening to what I'm doing. And that's very, very important to us. So make sure you give that like, share, subscribe, anything. We want you to be a part of this as well. Visit us on the center social pages. You can obviously visit the website, www.centerforsuicideawareness.org. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, Discord. All are at Center for Suicide Awareness in Kaukauna, Wisconsin. It's super important because that's how we get a lot of information out. And I want to make sure that you're up to date and understand that we are trying to do the best we can, because COVID has really, really made this big impact on us. And we're trying to get as much out to you as possible. And that's the best way to do it. So again, check us out on the social pages. So we partnered with somebody called the Mental Health News Radio Network. It's this collection of really awesome podcasts that focus on not just specifically mental health, but like a bunch of different things: suicide, causes, gender issues. I mean, it's anything, you name it, it's part of it. And it's really awesome because they've given us a bunch of different guests that have actually been on the podcast. And I'm really, really happy that they promote us in a very positive way. So we want to do the same and give back to them. Check them out, mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com. They have a bunch of different stuff, and I'm sure that they have something that's probably going to be tailored to you if you're listening to this one, because I've actually started listening to a bunch of them on there, and they are awesome. So I know in the near future, we have a bunch of different guests coming from them, and I want to make sure that they get the credit that they deserve for that. So again, check them out, mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com. Do you have questions, comments, concerns, anything for me or the podcast? You can actually talk to me. I'm not just somebody that, was coming through your radio, phone, whatever. You can actually contact me because I will respond to you. Aaron, AARON at centerforsuicideawareness.org. I want to make sure that if you have questions, comments, or concerns, or if you want to be a guest, it's a simple email to me. And you know what? I really am not that scary. I'm not. Trust me. I mean, some people might think so, but that's okay. I'm really not, though. So just message me if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. Aaron, AARON at centerforsuicideawareness.org. As I say every week, and I think it's more important now than ever before, is that, 2020 is coming to an end. And obviously this is coming out on New Year's Eve. So it's really coming to an end. But, throughout the entire year, we've had a lot of really negative stuff hit the news, hit our personal lives, hit everything. And it's been a really hard time financially, emotionally, physically. I mean, you hear so much negativity on the news. You hear so much troubles and tribulations that are going on. And it is hard. Give yourself some grace and just admit to yourself that, yeah, 2020 has really sucked, plain and simple. But as much as we try to focus on the positive, it's hard. So I'm really happy that we have provided, the Hope Line. And I talk about this in every podcast, but I've never really gone in depth to why. That's exactly why. So what you have to do, or what you want to do, is text Hope Line to 741-741. You're going to be connected to one of our trained specialists free of charge to talk about anything. And I mean anything. We're talking financial issues, relationship issues, suicide, mental health, anxiety. You have questions about a friend that's maybe going through something, stress, school. I mean, you name it. We're all going through something. So why is it not okay to talk about it? It's through text. It's an easy way to talk about it with somebody that you can trust. It's anonymous. You don't have to give any other information than what you want to, but they are people here to listen and to learn and to understand and to empathize with you. So that's why we provide this service for you. Again, text Hope Line to 741-741. I'm really, really happy that I get to keep doing this every single week. And to be honest, 2020, as I referenced in the podcast before this, has been kind of an interesting year for me. Coming from a job that I did for 12 years to learning how to run a podcast. This is episode 40. I've done 40 podcasts in this year. And I swear, it's phenomenal. I didn't know anything about this. I didn't know how to do anything like this. But the more that I do it, the more confident that I feel and how amazing the connections that I can make by doing this. It's a very heartwarming thing for me. And I really wish that anyone that's listening can understand that, because coming from a job that I was always looking over my shoulder or always feeling anxious or insecure about something, to providing help for people that are listening all over the world, it's amazing. There's no other way to say that. It's amazing. And I get to see the positive effects of what my voice is doing for people. And I can't thank you all enough for listening and for the positive feedback and for the support that I've had throughout this entire year. And I can't wait to see what 2021 brings us, because people's lives are very important to me. Your problems are very important to me. Don't ever forget that. So as I say every week, be kind to one another. Be kind. You are loved and you are important. And remember, you are not alone. Take care, everybody. We'll see you in 2021. Bye-bye.